First, the roots. Too often, and most often, coaches focus on the fruits, not the roots, right? They're like, the fruit is, I want to win a championship. The fruit is, right, I'm going to move up a level. The fruit is, I got these players in here. That's the fruit. So they're like, I got to artificially push out this fruit. I got to show the fruit. And what we try to do is we try to flip that upside down and say, no, you don't focus on the fruit to get the fruit. Basketball is a game of opposites. Most sports are the game of opposites. If you want this, you got to do this.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the founder and owner of SAVI Coaching, Tyler Coston. Tyler was a guest on episode number 2 of the Jamodi Podcast and is the first to join us for a second Hoops Talk. Tyler has played, coached, and consulted at every level of basketball. He is the creator of the lock left defense, race and space offense, and the SAVI shooting system. He's on a mission to revolutionize the way the game is taught and played. Tyler helps coaches and athletes find their purpose through sport. He is known as a thought leader in player development, curriculum creation, and teaching methodology. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Good to see you, man.
You too, man.
How's life?
Oh, living the dream here. Just got done with second period athletics, teaching Brunson this week. And it's a big key for our offensive flow that they have another weapon besides just a stride stop when they attack the paint. So excited about that.
See, man, that's what I love about you. Even after all these years, you're getting excited about the details of the game.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty
constantly
cool.
Changing and guys like you just making it easier for us by teaching good systems, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. How's the family?
They're good. They're good. Yeah. Just had Kate in town this weekend and man, the 15, Landon's 17. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you ever picture that you would have 15 and 17-year-old?
No, but I'm also excited for, I'll be 43 when we're empty nesters.
Still young.
That sounds pretty good.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that part. What about you? Tell me about your family.
Yeah, doing well. So daughters are 10 and 8, Cody and Charlie. Nash is 4. Oh, we're pregnant with our 4th. So empty nesting is so far in our future.
I'm sorry, man. I brought that up. We're obviously recording this whole time. Is this stuff that I can put in there, or that you're having your 4th? If it was a secret, I didn't want to put it out there.
But have a 4th.
Yeah.
So yeah, still early.
I feel so bad now. Here I am gloating about how I'm about to have hardly any responsibility around the house and just get to hang out with the lovely Miss Jana.
Know where we can drop our kids when we need a weekend.
That's right. Yeah, Matt and Jana they have nothing going on, so feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that's what's going on out here. It's good stuff.
What's your oldest? What's the age?
Her name is Cody, and she is 10.
Okay.
So
okay.
We're also, I guess this is big news as well.
Let's do it.
Basketball stuff, but we're launching our SAVI school this September. So it's a hybrid homeschool to support our community of homeschool families, going 3 days a week. Ourselves and one other family are the founding families. And I actually travel down to Oklahoma City next week to observe and learn from what Emily McLeod has done with hybrid homeschool. They have nearly 200 students in their hybrid homeschool group now. So we're launching that because we believe we're called to, both for our kids, and there's so many families in flux that are either frustrated and ready to leave public school.
Oh yeah.
Can't afford private school, or recognize, like we did, that what we're offering at home for our homeschool requires more support in community, and we want to provide that for our kids. So we looked around and didn't see it anywhere. And when you see a need, you attempt to fill
a need. Yeah. So
that's
you
what.
asked me years ago if I thought I'd have 15, 17-year-olds. I'll ask you, years ago, did you ever think you'd be founding a school?
No chance. Years ago, I mean, when we were both rocking, at PGC, I thought I was gonna be PGC for life.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I think maybe when we first talked, I did feel a stirring in me, and I didn't even know what it was, like God calling me out of that, which was very comfortable and very fulfilling personally, and I'm like, gosh, why am I being called out of this? Why does it seem like there's all this resistance right now to this thing? And I don't know the whole story yet, but in the last few years, just some really cool God things and ministry opportunities through sport. It has been confirmed for me that God was calling me out of it. And it definitely hasn't been comfortable, and it hasn't
Yeah.
been easy. And I don't think it will continue to be, but I do feel peace as I attempt to align with his purpose more and more. So absolutely.
That's a really good point, though, about how easy it is to take chances on things or say you're being called to do something when it's pretty easy to take that step when you maybe don't have a lot going on, or you're at a job that you can't stand. I think players a lot of times, or anybody, use that word, I've been called to do something, just because they really don't like where they are. And I've been called to play another sport. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe you just don't like this one, which is fine.
I've been called to this new career, which pays me twice as much.
That's right.
Hashtag blessing.
Sorry to let all you down, but when you like you said, you were such a huge part of PGC, and when you leave something that you're been so involved with and passionate about, to take a chance, I mean, that does take a leap of faith. And so I do believe that that calling, like you said, I was going to ask you, how do you know that it's been justified, or what did you say, validated? I guess the answer is it hasn't flopped, and you're doing doing more. You're opening a school now, so it's trending this way, which is good.
It seems to be. I'll talk to you next year, and we'll talk about the flop.
Right. Turns out I wasn't called to do what I was doing, and it was a huge mistake.
Well, but I personally believe, Matt, and I don't know where you land on this. Like, I believe we can be called to things that fail. Because I think I actually posted about this today. I'm reading right now this book called The Handbook for Athletic Perfection. And it's all about, it's a training manual for Christian athletes and coaches. And
the title's interesting.
I know, right? Perfection. And so it kind of redefines perfection, not as like throwing the perfect game or coaching a championship team, but aligning with God's purpose for you in athletics. And a lot of born again Christians in athletics like struggle with, am I called to ministry, or what's the point of sport in the eternal kingdom? They might go that way, or they might go the way of, okay, like I'm a private Christian, but publicly as an athlete or a coach, like I'm just striving for excellence here.
Yeah.
So it's one of those two, and he's making a case and sharing a process for athletic perfection is completely aligning your faith and walk with God with performing at the highest levels, which I think is a really hard line to walk, but one we're called to. But I'll just share this with you. In church on Sunday, it was really interesting. We had a guest speaker, and he was a pastor of a failed church plant.
Wow.
And and so he and his failed church plant were coming back into our church, from which they were sent out. And he shared very transparently, and he still believes to this day that God called him to plant this church 4.5 years ago. And they did, and things were trending up, like attendance was trending up, finances were trending up, but his personal health and the health of his leadership team was trending down. Like they were literally limping into church with like broken bones and like sickness after 4.5 years. And so he kind of shared very publicly that he really does believe that then God called him to plant this church, and now God has said, you're no longer supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to come under the authority of this other church. And he just shared how he struggled with so many regrets and failures, and believes that God's telling him, you don't fail as long as you obey. Like if you see obedience as success and not, our earthly measures of success, like winning and, finances and, social media followers or whatever. And that really spoke to me, honestly. And because both you and I come from like our whole lives, achieve, win, 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 right? And so yeah, so that's why this book is in line, is like, okay, how believing that God has given us this talent of leadership and pursuit of excellence and competitiveness, and so He wants us to go and live in that, to compete, to slay Goliath and cut off his head and be like a warrior. And also, when we lose, know that true success and winning is because we're in God's will and purpose for our life. And so we don't, have these huge lows that most coaches in our profession have when they lose or fail or whatnot.
So man, watch that Urban Meyer deal with Florida to see what being outcome based will do to somebody. He's winning national championships and he's going on the way in to celebrate, getting his phone, texting recruits. He said, because it's on to the next one.
Yeah.
And then he leaves. But the powerful thing about that story too is, in his failure, because you normally think that dude's not getting invited to speak. Like, hey, just sit in the back. Like, we don't want to hear from you. You failed. But in his failure, I would imagine there was way more people that he was able to influence in just talk, that if he would have come in and said, God called me to do this, everything went right and we're crushing it.
Yeah.
Because the majority of us don't feel that way and don't experience that, no matter what our relationship is like. And then I think the other answer is like, why do we have success? Why do we fail? For His glory.
Yes.
Like, and that's a hard thing. We fail for His glory. Yes, because when we're weak, golly, He really shows through, and we learn a valuable lesson, which is He can use all of it. He can use my screwed up past. He can use anybody else. He can use that guy as a failure to then bring glory to Him. It's the same thing with why do we sin? Why do bad things happen? It's all for His glory, all of it.
Amen.
All right. Thanks for coming on, man. That was great.
Yeah. It's great to get reconnected with you.
Hey,
and, to spend time and talk, I've always loved spending time with you. So
thanks, man.
Encouraging for me.
I didn't ask him to say that either. You just said it. But, I want to say congratulations to right now. I've put out about 145 of these.
Oh, nice.
You were number 2 on the list, and you're the first to come back.
Okay.
And so this is my first one. Yeah. So welcome to part 2. I have really no clue what I'm doing in this one because I've never done this before. Have somebody back again. So all new.
We'll figure it out. We'll do our best to add value to the listeners for sure.
Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jomoti Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamotipodcast@gmail.com for more information. I'd love to hear a little bit about SAVI. And I think after we had our talk, it wasn't too long before knowing you were making some adjustments, some things were changing, you were finding more efficient ways to either speak or to teach. So, man, it's been 2 years. Where's SAVI now?
Yeah. SAVI is continuing to, put out systems for coaches to, be better on offense, defense with their shooting and whatnot. But SAVI now is moving towards deeper impact with a smaller group of coaches, as I'm consulting with programs from the Division I level, which is really where I get my juices flowing and I love it. All the way down to club programs, with 300 kids in it. That's really where I'm feeling called, is to work one-on-one consulting with programs. Everything else is just the top of the funnel to get people down to the heart of coaching. So, a coach isn't going to be like searching online. How do I find my purpose in coaching? They're not searching for that. They're searching for, how can we make more shots, right? A defensive system, right? So that's the top of the funnel. But the coaches that have now been working with us for multiple years, I mean, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, where do you source your coaching from? What is your why? So we've developed this image, this graphic now of a tree, of the SAVI coaching tree. And we know in our world, all these coaches have their coaching tree. They're a part of Coach K's coaching tree or Matt Saman's coaching tree. And what that holds some weight, and in lieu of a certification. But if you know that someone's a part of Matt Saman's coaching tree, people that know you, Matt, are going to know kind of what they're getting.
They're going to shoot it a lot. They're not going to play good D. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So you kind of know. So the SAVI coaching tree is 4 steps, and any new coach that comes into SAVI gets onboarded and trained through the SAVI coaching tree of 4 steps. And this is what we take coaches through. First, the roots. Too often, and most often, coaches focus on the fruits, not the roots. Right? They're like, the fruit is, I want to win a championship. The fruit is, right, I'm going to move up a level. The fruit is, I got these players in here. That's the fruit. So they're like, I got to artificially push out this fruit. I got to show the fruit. And what we try to do is we try to flip that upside down and say, no, you don't focus on the fruit to get the fruit. Basketball is a game of opposites. Most sports are the game of opposites. If you want this, you got to do this. And so you focus on the root, and first you got to get clear and firmly rooted in your why. Why do you show up and pursue this so heavily and so hard every single day? And once you get clear on your why, because most coaches have a why, but they haven't articulated it and they can't spit it out right away, which just tells me they haven't thought about it enough. They haven't written about it enough. They haven't conversed about it enough. They don't know their why. And when you lose your why, you'll always lose your way. Like on the journey, always, right? And so we spend most of our time when we onboard what we call our commit members, where they're committed to the journey. We take them through a 4-week consulting process, where week 1 is, let's get clear on your why. Because I can't help a coach if I don't know their why. You can't help a player if you don't really know why they're showing up every day. You're going to be limited. You're going to be trying to artificially motivate them to do a stride stop when you don't even know why they would care about a stride stop. You're going to be limited. You're not going to get the most out of them, right? So that's the root. Get firmly rooted in your why. And once you define your why, then you can have the trunk, which we call the standards. You can establish standards for your program. I also think that most coaches don't know what culture is. They don't know what culture is. Like, man, I want a strong culture. Oh, we've got to change the culture. And you have no chance of changing the culture if you don't start with your why and then build standards. Standards comes before culture. Culture is what grows out of standards. And culture is co-created. The culture is going to change each year by whatever stakeholders you have, what parents you have in your program, what leaders and kids have in your program. It's going to look different. The culture changes. You can't control the culture. You're a part of the culture as a leader. But what you can control is the standards. This is what is acceptable here, and this is what is not acceptable here. This is what we prioritize here. These are our standards. Now, out of the standard, and the standard's got to be strong, it's your trunk. Because if the personalities and the individual desires and what grows out of conversations, relationships, that's your culture. If that's too heavy and too much for your standards, it's going to break. It's going to break when obstacles come, right? And so I think coaches focus on culture too much and too often when they haven't defined their standards. Like if your culture is toxic or negative, or if your culture breaks your program or breaks your leadership, then you haven't been clear enough about your standards and you haven't fought for them hard enough. And that's where most coaches fall down. is they aren't super clear on what their standards are, and they haven't fought for it hard enough, right? And then like step 3, right? Step 1 is your why, step 2 is your standards, that's your trunk. Step 3 is the branches. And this is where I would love helping coaches as well. Your branches are your systems. If it's important to
Aren't
you,
or are?
Thank you. Your branches are your systems. Thank you. If it's important to you, it should have a system. One of your questions that I look forward to talking about was, how do you decide what you do in practice? If you're deciding day to day what you're doing in practice, you've already lost. Sun Tzu says, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war and then seek to win. And most coaches that I get the opportunity to work with and that I see, they're going to war and then seeking to win. They're going to the game and then trying to adjust and like coaching the game to win. You already lost. You already lost, right? Or you're the night before thinking about, what should we do in practice? You've already lost. You've already lost because you're chasing your tail. You're trying to put out flyers and plug holes in the dam the entire season. You don't have a clear vision, a system that you are sticking to. Because if it's important, it has a system. If you want to be a great shooting team, you have a shooting system for your program. You want to be a great defensive team, you have a system for that. You aren't just like running around every practice trying to look up online a new drill for rebounding.
Yeah.
Right. So that's your systems. And then the level 4 is the fruit, the outcomes, right? And the key is for outcomes is measurement is magic. Anything that you want to see, you have to measure. And most coaches have blind spots, massive blind spots. Yeah. Another one of your questions that we're not talking about, great questions, by the way, is what role does analytics play in your program?
Did you say that we're not talking about?
We could, but I didn't just like it as one of the
wow.
ones.
All right.
We can, but
steer clear of that one.
Oh my gosh. And so it's like, well,
who's running this? Who's
you told me I can only pick 5.
Keep going.
So analytics is like, most coaches perceive analytics to be other data that informs their decisions. And I think that coaches would be better served if all of the data that they looked at was their own, just their own. Like, so if you have a system for it, that system includes measurement, because measurement's just magic. I mean, it's this simple. So one of my best friends has become a professional pickleball player, which means I am now a pickleball player. I play a ton of pickleball. Yeah, I'm in. And so in pickleball, there's this thing called a duper, and a duper is your player rating, and it's similar to a handicap in golf. Okay. And so every game you play that's an actual duper match or a duper tournament or a duper league, your rating goes up or down based on your rating, your opponent's rating, and the outcome, the score.
Wow.
Everyone. So I tell you what I'm doing. I played in a tournament yesterday. Tell you what I'm doing this morning. I'm checking that duper and I'm pouring over. Okay.
How's your duper?
Yeah, it's trending up, right? and so it's like, why? So then when I look at my duper this morning and I see like, oh man, I only went up 0.05. I'm like, I need to get in the gym today and I need to drill my backhand or whatever. Yeah. And so measurement motivates way more than your yelling, your halftime talks or whatever. Yeah. And so if we're not using analytics to measure what you have systems for, and if your systems don't grow out of your standards, the things that you value, and if what you value isn't firmly rooted in your why, you have no chance of doing something special. But if you can do those 4 simple things, man, coaches are blown away by how quickly their program and their influence grow. And it's really quite simple. But that's what SAVI is now. It's help coaches establish their tree.
I just want to celebrate you on how you continue to grow and change, because what a huge shift from, really where we started 2 years ago, which was those 4 letters, and what those stand for, and the system that you were trying to use there. I'm not saying that you don't use that anymore.
Yeah, we do. We do as a part of it. Yeah.
But this is, I assume that would be part of the branches, right? Or are those standards in your
Yeah, so SAVI is our standards. Yeah, really, really, so you identified it, right? So we have our why. I have my why I'm
Yeah.
doing this. I want to revolutionize the way the game is taught and played so that coaches and athletes can have a more joy-filled sport experience. That's my why. So, okay, now what are our standards that are required for that why, right? Simplicity is what we believe about it. Adversity, here's what we believe about it. Victory, here's what we believe about it, right? Victory is your purpose, not your performance. Identity,
Hmm.
firmly rooted in who you are created to be as a son or daughter of God. And like out of those standards, that's how we operate, right? And so now our systems come out of those standards.
I love the idea with the roots about flipping it, because I think you're right on the money. Like, thought about shooting immediately when you said that. Is so many times we talk with shooting, we're just going to give them a really good drill, and in this drill, guys, you got to make this amount, and based on that's kind of we're looking at the fruit. And but if you flip it and you take just something like shooting, you start now. I'm not saying roots because you start at the feet because of roots, but to me, you take it back to its most simplest form. Like, what do we really need to work on or identify first? Like, what's most important, in my opinion, with shooting is our feet, making sure that our feet are either with a step or a drop, but are in rhythm, on time, and then the speed portion we talked about years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think I would encourage coaches and myself, take every part of the game, the closeout, blocking out, all of those little things, and flip it around. Yeah, we want blockouts because we want to get the ball back, right? We want more possessions. We want to lessen their possessions. But flip it around and really get back down to the roots or the basics of it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team.
Let's hammer that point, because every coach I think listens to be like, yep, I agree with that. And yet every coach, and I say this in love, clarity is kind. Brene Brown, clarity is kind. Coach, you say you love it, but I could walk into your practice right now and tear it apart with a lack of that approach. And not tear it apart in negative, but like I get it. Coaches, we get excited as coaches when we can help a kid, right? We see a player, oh my goodness, I get to coach, I get to correct this thing. We love it because we know we can help, right? And yet we as coaches, when other people want to coach us, we don't want it. Like, oh, I'm defensive.
No
It's the
doubt.
most hypocritical profession that I've ever encountered. Coaches believe in coaching and yet don't want coaching. Most, right? And so, like, I coach coaches. This is what I do. And so I walk into a practice, I'm like, oh, let's tear it up, right? And usually it takes a month to get to a place where the coach is excited for feedback. A month of working together, which is, and I think you have something to share on that one.
Well, we got to be careful that Steve Nash quote that we all love to tell our players, we have to believe in it too. And my least favorite thing, and I've shared this with you before, my least favorite thing about when I started with PGC was getting evaluated at PGC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been coaching for a little while. I played a little bit. Just let me do my thing. I want these notes. Or when I went to snaps the first time, we actually got on the floor and we practiced the question method. I was so uncomfortable with all of that. But you're right on the money. Like, how easy is it as we get older and we do this more and more? You mentioned earlier, the blind spots come, the slippage comes, and we don't even realize it at times before all of a sudden we realize, or we step back and we notice, golly, this is just not what it used to be, or I'm not what I used to be. I'm resulting a lot more than I used to be. But I think it's harder. It's hard to have somebody like you or anybody come in and critique, but it's what we need the most, because it's what we do with our players every day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, I truly believe this could be one of the most impactful 2 minutes for coaches if they could really get this here. And this is under the standard of simplicity. And you talked about it. Okay. Anything that a coach does, they should put through the razor of simplicity. and be able to ask this question. Why is this important? So when you say get back to the basics, most coaches cognitively go to the wrong place. Oh, the first thing I was taught, or the first thing that I would teach a beginner, they think that's the basics. Reject it completely. This is not the first thing that you were taught. This is, why is this important? Reject anything you've ever learned. Approach it with a beginner's mind. What is the most important outcome of this thing? Let's use shooting. Okay. I recently got to present and spend a weekend with Rob Fodor, who is the shooting coach for the Miami Heat and responsible for the amazing shooting performances and transformations we've seen come out of that program over the past 4 to 5 years. And he and I immediately connected and got to spend so much time together. And Rob, if you're listening, I really appreciate your mentorship and leadership on this idea. Rob was a high-level basketball player, completely left athletics and worked in the private sector and was successful in the private sector for multiple decades, and came back to basketball when he was playing golf at a country club and was asked to play basketball 20 years after he'd played the game. Wow. And he got to the gym and shot the lights out after not touching a basketball for 20 years. And he's like, interesting, I'm still good at this thing. He said, I would be interested in teaching shooting. So he went out there and consumed everything in the coaching world about shooting. And after looking at it, he said, this is all wrong. There's not a single thing of value. He's like, everyone's just regurgitating the crap, the fundamentals, the basics that they were taught. And he's like, and then I looked at the best shooters and none of them were doing any of the things these people are saying. He's like, this is stupid. Basketball coaches cannot teach me how to coach basketball. That was his conclusion. And so he's like, where can I go to learn how to teach shooting? And so he went to learn how to teach shooting from anywhere that was not basketball. So he started studying kinesiology, like how does the body actually move? He went and read studies on cat movement because he was fascinated with this phrase of like quick as a cat, right? And so like all these coaches are listening to him talk, right? And they're like, this guy is bonkers, and he plays to that that personality as well, like the crazed mad professor guy, right?
Yeah.
He studied cats, he studied ballet, right? And built his shooting philosophy from rejecting everything and being like, what is the definition of shooting in 4 words? And basically is shoot ball at target. That's it. So simplicity wins. Like, so in anything a coach is teaching, you must first simplify it to not what we were taught, but what is the desired outcome? What is the highest and greatest outcome? What's the ideal of the situation? Shoot ball at target. Okay, if that is the simple goal of shooting, now let's build our system out of that. Don't build your system out of, okay, I'm going to teach footwork, or I'm going to have great form. Form is not the outcome, right? Shots going in is the outcome. And if you approached it from that, okay, okay, we need to rebound better. Then we need to spend more time boxing out. No, you're wrong already. What's the outcome you want? Get possession, right? Okay, now if that's the outcome, how do I build a system out of that? And that's the step that coaches miss and fail at. And like, if you always follow the crowd, you will be a part of the crowd. You will not be special, right? Whereas the only way to leave the crowd is to reject the crowd and embark on your own path. And this is one step you can do. I believe that's what a SAVI approach is okay, what's my simple objective? How simply can I define it? Right? Mike Neighbors does this so well with their offense. He can distill it. You probably heard him teach this. He can distill their offense down to 2 words: our shots. Right? Our offense gets our shots. Okay, then you got to define our shots, right? And everything is this helping us get our shots, or are we just running an action because I saw it on Twitter as a must-add action? Shut up, must-add action. Okay, like no, it's just like what's your If you're just doing it because it said must add action, you've already lost because you're trying to imitate
Yeah.
a personnel and a personality that's not yours. So like that is like, I think the approach of what you're sharing of like, get back to the basics and no, define the basics.
Yeah.
Right. And for you, you've defined it as, where the body contacts the floor, right? That's very important, right? Great. So then, what I would ask you and anyone is, okay, why is that the most important place to start in order to shoot ball at target or put ball in rim? And you probably have a great answer, but in that conversation, you're going to clarify your thinking.
I mean, obviously, talking with you, I'm questioning every answer that I would give, but I would say, I mean, I'll shoot it. I'll throw it out there. I think starting from your feet, making sure your feet. I like the word comfortable. I think we should be comfortable. Your shot should feel easy and smooth.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of flow from our feet. Everything that you talked about, ankles, knees, hips, ball movement, everything can flow like that reverse waterfall. Now, the problem with everything I just said, well, that was like 16 words. So how do I take that and I make it even simpler from that? To me, the word is flow. Offense is flow. But from that, we can define a lot of things, or we can describe a lot of things. But that, to me, great footwork creates flow that you want throughout the rest of your shot. And I love the shoot ball at target. I'm an up and at fan myself of what's your shot need to be up and at. But go ahead.
That's good. That's good. And then like, okay, now you're rooted. And then from there, you have all sorts of systems, right?
But take apart my feet thing.
Okay. I think that feet is probably one part of your system. I like what you said with up and at, because up and at comes before feet.
Yeah.
It's your why, right?
Yeah.
And communication should result in repeatability. So when we communicate to a team or a group that we're leading, if they can't repeat us verbatim, our communication isn't simple enough or clear enough. It doesn't matter what we articulate. It matters that they can repeat. And repeat is multiple things, but two of them are they can actually say the exact same words and they can repeat the action, right? Yeah. And if they can't repeat it, then you shouldn't move on yet.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where we as coaches kind of fall apart. So I think that like for you, like whether it's up and at or whatever, they need to be able to repeat up and at and understand why are we working on our feet today? Because we got to shoot up and at, right? Or because we got to have flow or whatever. Like once they can repeat it, then it can play itself out in feet, whatever, all the things. So I would agree. So personally, I would start somewhere else, but acknowledge that I think feet are foundational. I would start with sequence. Obviously, chicken egg, we can have this conversation. It depends. There's no right answer, right? I find that more shooters miss because of poor sequence, which a lot of times we as coaches call rhythm. Like we say, oh, that was in rhythm, that was out of rhythm. Well, what rhythm actually is a repeatable sequence. If we're trying to shoot ball at target, right, how the ball sequences up with our body movement is going to determine whether or not the shot is on the line or can even get to the target. It's how we generate our power, right? And so setting the feet, like you were talking about, starts the sequence for most players. Okay, you ready for this? This is gonna
let's go.
Okay. I believe that starting the sequence with the feet causes most shooters to miss. Now, I believe feet for balance, which we agree with, right? Feet for balance is essential. But here it is. When we start our shot with our feet, we're actually slowing down our shot and the ball's losing power. So from whatever we call, a load position, set position, whatever, when our hips are at the lowest point, let's call that the load position, okay? When the hips are at the lowest point, the ball is what has to move furthest.
Right.
Our feet don't move very much. Like when you think about ankle flexion or jumping, our hips don't move the most. Our torso sure as heck isn't moving. It's the ball. And so when we start the shot with the feet, the ball is always behind. when the ball's behind, we're out of sequence. Think about a
So
jumper.
they're jumping, the ball is still at its low point, and then
Exactly.
as they're almost connecting that, transferring that power through, the ball isn't at the point yet where it has to actually use
Yeah,
that power, so it's late.
exactly. Exactly. And every form thing that we as a coach correct is a product of poor sequence. Poor sequence equals poor power generation. So they have to find a way to get power on the basketball. Two hands, piking their body, leaning back to give themselves more time to push, overturn. All of those things are outcomes, are byproducts of poor sequence. And I believe in feet. Okay, I'm not hammering feet. I just think that when we focus on setting feet and the feet are set before the ball is set, we're always behind. And so I actually think ball first, both ball to set. And so how would we actually train this? There's all these cool drills that I've been messing with, and I would love to share them with you. But one simple breakdown is off the catch, and this is a travel. Let's say we're working on a 1-2 footwork or like a step in footwork, and not what I'm calling an airdrop right now, because people know about airdrops, okay, which would be like an airborne receiver. So I would actually have them catch, pass, or self toss or dribble. I don't care, whatever. Set hands, load hands tight to body, and then 1-2 step shot. And we would call that a tune up in our pre-practice. So what I'm actually triggering is I'm focused on hand speed before foot speed. Okay, then we would go into the next level of it, which is going to be catch, load, step with the first foot. So my hands are already set before the second foot actually plants and fires.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we focus on feet, the hands are always getting behind.
Yeah.
Right. Then third step, okay, is going to be now we're going into live, trying to get our rhythm or our flow or easy ball, whatever.
You don't have to say it like that. You don't have to rhythm or flow. Just because I love the word flow.
I love the word flow.
Okay.
I love the word flow.
Keep going.
All right. Anyway, so then we're going hands, feet without traveling, right?
Yeah.
And so like that would be a sequence that we would do, because think about walking, right? And this is something that I do with players. I'm like, okay, Dante, I want you to walk slowly this 15 feet. And obviously Dante's arms are going to move, right? I'm like, okay, Dante, I don't want you to focus on walking faster. I just want you to move your hands faster, but don't walk faster, right? And he moves his hands faster, and guess what happens? He walks faster.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Hands control our speed. Like, like even like arm swinging sprinters, right? And so the fastest way to speed up feet was like speed up your feet, speed up your feet, speed up your shot prep. Yes, yes, yes. But the fastest way I found to actually speed up shot prep is speed up hands. Then the feet will follow. But when we speed up feet and the hands get behind, we've lost. So like that's the biggest thing that I'm focusing on right now in shooting, that I've seen a lot of regular results on.
All right. So in order to speed up hands, one thing we used to do, I got Micah Lancaster idea, but shotgun shooting, where I have my feet maybe a little bit wider than normal, ball right in front of me, and I'm going to slam that ball down as my hips drop. It pops up into my hands and it moves up really quick. Yeah. Is that an example of something we can do to get our feet moving quicker, or our hands moving quicker? Yes,
it is. I'm going to get my basketball here. This wasn't on the list. Here we go. All right. So yes, I like that. And in my experience, that is maybe a higher level one. I wouldn't start with it.
Okay.
As I think as another teaching principle, if you can't do it slow, you can't do it. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it. And so as far as
have you changed then from speed first? Because that was always a big thing, and I'm still a believer when I get them and I do start with their feet, but getting their feet on time or the way they want, either a drop or a step, and we just increase their speed. It's amazing how the imperfections of their shot just kind of go out.
Just go away. No, as a principle, haven't changed from speed first.
Okay.
It's like that's the outcome, right? Remember going back to like, the
Yep.
simplicity. Okay, what's the highest and best principal outcome here? We want to speed up their shot. Because if we speed it up, everything okay. How do we speed up their
Yeah.
shot? One tool would be, if you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast.
Okay.
Right? So the outcome is we're trying to get speed. So this would be an example. Okay, so sequence. And this Rob Fodor, shout out, got this from you. So this is a visual sequence, and every coach, you can do this with your players. We want you to shoot in sequence. Here is an example of sequence. The goal is to get the ball going upwards right here. I'm going to just lift my hand and tap the ball 2 different ways. Here's way number 1. Bounce, tap. Bounce, tap. Okay, that's way number 1. Here's way number 2. Bounce, tap. Bounce, tap. I didn't move my hand any harder or faster. I just put force on the ball at a different time. On the first one, I put force on the ball as the ball was coming down. On the second one, I put force on the ball as the ball is going up.
Yeah.
That's shooting. That's just shooting. Like when you put force on the ball, that's in sequence. So that's what we have to figure out. Okay. So that's our outcome, right? And we want to do that faster and faster. Okay. So how are we going to train it? And I think shotguns, I call them blasters, a great way to do it in sequence. But I would always do it in a shooting sandwich. So a shooting sandwich would be regular shots, what I call load shots. Then we would do some sort of a tune. Shotguns would be a tune. Break the chains that I'm about to show you would be a tune. And then we put the other piece of bread on the sandwich and shoot regular shots again, right? And that gives us our measurement, right? Okay, feel our normal shot. Feel what this brace or this tune-up does to our shot, and then feel it impacting our shot again, right?
Yeah.
We do that. We can't just go do blasters and expect it to change it. Like we have to kind of bookend it a little bit, right?
I like that.
So break the chains are basically, it's the chain, as I'm calling it, is the chain that most players have between the ball and their hips, right? As the ball goes up, the hips go up. Okay, that's the chain, right? Well, if the hips start when the ball does, and the ball has to travel this far, and the hips have to travel this far, if we go up together, I've lost my power before I'm putting force on the ball, and that's like hitting the ball on the way down. We have to break the chain between our hands and our hips, between our hands and our feet. We got to break that chain. The hands have to be first, and the hands have to be fast, right? Okay, so what one way that I do this is, they're called break the chains, is I want to break the chain between when I load the ball, which loading the ball for me is we load it tight to our body and we get some load on the wrist here. Load the ball, okay, and load my hips. I want to load the ball before I load my hips. So I'm going to step and dribble at the same time. So my left foot's going to hit the ground at the same time the ball hits the ground. Just in place. It's not a big step. I step and dribble at the same time, and then I'm going to hop into my shot, airdrop into my shot. Now, when you have players do this, every single time, they're going to gather the ball as their feet hit the ground. It's just natural. They can't not do it. They're going to go together. I'm like, no, you cannot go together. You must load the ball before your feet hit the ground. It's going to take them 10. It's the simplest thing. Okay, it's the simplest thing to actually do it first. You can see me doing it. They can't do it for the first 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because there's such a strong connection they've built over time between their hands and their feet. So what happens when we focus on feet, and all coaches do it, is their feet, hands, right?
Yeah.
And then, I'm late and I got to do all this weird stuff. And they have to have really, really great hands in order to fix it. And that's why there aren't a lot of great shooters. Right. And so if we just do these break the chain shots, which I would do in that middle of the sandwich instead of shotguns.
Yeah.
Right. But I would eventually get to shotguns. Right. But this is a little bit easier and a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be like step 1 of break the chains. And then we get to like all this sorts of cool stuff where we have to like pass fake and get to load before our feet hit the ground, or we got to like go behind the back before our feet hit the ground. Right. Because it's all just teaching ball around body instead of body around ball, right? Which is ball handling, passing, finishing, right? All of it. So anyway, that would be an approach to shooting. Again, we haven't talked about form once,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Because it's just
I love that. Yeah.
so, and it is leading to, which I love, it's leading to speed as a way to get speed. Now, can faster feet get speed? Absolutely. But if we're out of sequence and you add speed to a bad sequence, it actually gets worse. So sequence. Now, speed fixes form, like we've talked about before, right? And so I think what I've learned in the past, year and a half is, okay, sequence, then speed would be maybe where I've shifted and learned a little bit.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
So let me ask about going back to kind of PGC shooting school or a shooting college where, we start with those levels 1 through 6. I kind of at faith started calling it unbroken habits. Unbroken habits lead to broken records.
Love it.
Do you still incorporate that, or have you kind of gotten away because each specific thing has a different form aspect to it? But I mean, I think maybe when you get the drops, assuming you stick with the traditional, what we used to teach. I've changed things up at different levels over the years. Some of Mike Dunn's stuff I've tried to add into because the way you're holding the ball close, that's something that I think hurt me as a shooter is bringing that ball away, even with one hand shooting, instead of having it like this, what a lot of people do. Like we're like creating that.
We're creating it.
Yeah. But what we do is we keep it tight and we let it flow right up through. There's that word, but like, what are you doing with level shooting like we used to?
Yeah. Great question. Let me just real quick, if I may, go back to one hand form shooting.
Yeah.
Because this is going back to what I said, I think could be like one of the most impactful 2 minutes. Coach says, we got to be a better shooting team. We're going to spend way more time on form shooting. And so let's go back to the basics. Everyone's going to do one hand form shooting. And you just made your shooters worse, not better.
Yeah.
Because you assume you have this blind spot that how shooting's taught in the fundamentals is the right way to teach it, instead of saying no, our objective is to make more shots. Okay, if we throw everything out the window, given our situation and our team and how we play, what's going to help us make more shots actually? In fact, I'm about to I just did a webinar on Sunday for our coaching community, kicking off a 4-week cohort where I'm going to take a group of 15 to 20 coaches through how to get their team to make more 3-pointers. The guarantee is your team makes 5 more threes a game this season if you spend these 4 weeks with me. And we're going to.
I already missed the first week. I missed the first week.
No. First week starts next week. This was just our intro to it. I'll send you something if you would like.
Please do.
Basically, it's gonna be like, how do you establish a shooting system that guarantees that with your team? And the system isn't technique. Right. The system is okay. How much of your practice do you dedicate to it? What are you measuring? What are you actually doing? How do you eliminate every team shooting drill that you do and turn into an individual shooting drill? Like just different things like this that over time are going to give you compound returns. I just love how you shared that because that's the mind shift, coaches. When you want to achieve an outcome, simplify the outcome to your objective. Don't simplify it to a drill. Don't simplify it to how you were taught or what you think the basics are. Question everything, start from zero, and begin with the end in mind, and you will make much better decisions.
I'm trying to think of, because I you know me, like I think I'm in line with you and questioning things and trying to think outside the box. There's a lot of coaches that are also that way, but I would say there's probably a large portion that aren't. And when they hear you talking about dramatically changing the way that we train shooters, I wonder if there's a group of guys that just think like, I don't have time for this. My initial thought to that question is, do you care about, or do you have time to win or score more? Or do you care? I mean, like what's important to you? I mean, you have time for a shell drill for another 5 minutes, but not, but, how do we get coaches? And there's still parts of me that are stubborn. I'm not all like I'm kind of like Anakin right now. I'm not full Darth. There's a little Darth, you know what I mean? But that's weird.
No,
What
I'm a Star Wars guy.
I know
I
that.
felt the force when you said
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But I'm not Darth. Like Darth is, I'm with a little good. I think I'm a lot of good. There's a little of that fear at times that I don't know. Honestly, when I think outside the box and I try to get some things that in my mind, like you said, like it's addressing the why and it's creating a good system, creating habits that we want. But there's always a fear in me that is this really wasting their time? Like, is this the best that we could be doing with the, like I get 43 minutes every day, man, I can't afford to, I know we're going to make mistakes, but like repeated. So if there's coaches out there that have that fear of, I mean, I don't know if I can, I'm going to get them in lines of 8. We're going to shoot and get our rebound and rotate. That's all we do. How do those guys, I guess, the courage to make the shift?
Yeah. I would actually encourage coaches not to try and think outside the box. I would encourage coaches to actually more firmly root themselves in the box. So, and I think we're saying the same thing, but
Yeah.
a lot of times, like, it's like change for change. Man, I got to think outside the box. You by definition can't. The box is your mind, your experience, and your beliefs. You cannot think outside the box. Like, you can't. The only way to get outside the box is to interact with books, people, ideas that have a different experience than you. Trying to think outside the box is impossible. So
Right.
don't try to. Instead, I would say trust yourself more and strip away all of the toxic like things that have infected your true beliefs. Trust yourself more, coach. I mean, every time I talk to a coach, like, now that you say that, I've always actually thought that myself. And I've wanted that happens so often, right? And
Yeah.
I just more coaches need to trust themselves more. And I love what you said about fear. You cannot make a good decision from a place of fear. You cannot make a good decision from a place of fear. There's a family in my program where I'm having hard conversations with the parent about their child and what their child actually needs to be successful long term. And there's some fear that's been creeping. It's like, man, this is a really good player. If I hold them accountable to our standards of attitude, I might lose this player.
No doubt.
That fear crept in, right?
Yeah.
And for a while, it caused me to compromise on our standards until it got painful. And then when it got painful, then I held the line, right? And fear caused me to make a bad decision. Once I held the line, this player changed. And oh my gosh, has it been unbelievable since once I held the line. But fear caused me to make a bad decision. And I think for coaches as well, fear makes bad. Like, what you want. Just strip away all the other crap because you saw this other coach doing it, or you're afraid of what a parent might say if you put their child in a role or whatever. Strip it away. You have the answer inside. You really do. And your answer is always going to be the best answer. Simplify it, clarify it, and speak it more, and source everything from that principle. And you're going to be more successful without trying to get outside the box, and you'll see things differently when you clear up the lens that you're looking through. Like the lens can get clouded by fear, the lens can get clouded by doubt, the lens can get clouded by, there's this my assistant coach really wants this. It can get clouded by all sorts of things. So I think just stay in your box, trust yourself.
I was laughing about the fact that I even used outside the box because I thought it was our talk last time, 2 years ago, where you said, I don't even have a box. I don't even because I've thought about that quite a bit. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily outside the box. It's just figuring out, and you nailed it from the very beginning, starting at your why, figuring out what kind of, like, where do you want this team? Where do you want this player to go? And then from that, why is it? And then build those systems and standards. A lot of what you're just saying, it really made me think about Shawnee Harley, which I want to thank you so much for connecting us. I recorded an episode with her that by the time this one comes out, will already have been out, because I felt like it was such an important message for coaches at this time of year with the season approaching us to hear. It was probably I loved our talk 2 years ago. It was hers was probably one of the most impactful that I've had, that made me go home and just rethink a lot of things and dissect a lot of decisions I've made based on fear of the opinion of others, but one of the things she talked about a lot was culture breakers. And so first, thank you for that, for connecting and going to the trunk and the standards. One thing she mentioned, which was really unique, was, a lot of times we talk about, here are our standards, and we almost just speak in the positive direction of, this is how it's going to look like when they always are there, and we're always adhering to them, and it's sticking, and we're not making any mistakes. She took it another way of going, you got to look more at your culture breakers, your standard. If excellence is a standard for us, in what ways do we show a lack of excellence? In what ways can excellence break down? And as soon as you said that culture comes from the standards, I think what am I trying to say? Not drill for coaches.
Exercise.
I'm blanking. Activity. Thanks. Yeah, valuable exercise for us to do. And with our players, the co-creators, like you say, stakeholders, is to ask them, not just here's what our standards, okay, what are the ways where this doesn't show up? Because that might help with blind spots, right?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I love that. And Shawnee, love her. She's been a mentor to me for nearly 20 years. And I think what you just said is a great tool. And I know this has turned into a very philosophical conversation. And, I think I know that many coaches are like, all right, let's get practical here. And so maybe we can do this, but like, this is why it's philosophical. The very first Supreme Court justice said this. He said, for the simplicity on this side of complexity, I wouldn't give a fig. But for the simplicity that comes on the other side of complexity, I would give my whole life. And that's really what, Matt, you and I are discussing here, is like the simplicity on the other side of complexity is what we're going after. Like, we've gone through all the complexity. Like, I think I've learned as much about shooting over the last 2 decades as nearly anyone else in basketball. I've gone through all the complexity. So have you, right? It's been a passion of yours for so long. And now, after going through the complexity, it's coming back to this core. So shoot ball at target.
Up and at,
right?
But what about the 18 things that you wrote down?
Exactly. Up and at. We'll sample some of those 18, and that's complexity that I got in my back pocket for you. But it all comes back to simplicity, and this is what I would love to highlight about what you shared so well, and that Shawnee has challenged both of us on. The quickest way to simplify your message is to look at what you need to eliminate, right? Like the culture breakers, like, eliminate. Man, I don't know what my standard should be. What do you hate? Oh, let me tell you the 20 things that I hate. Okay, that'll get you your standard. You know what I mean?
Or Mike Neighbor's pet peeves list. That's a good place to start for standards.
It's a great place to start with standards. Yeah, you're right. And that will expose some of your own blind spots. Is like, oh, okay, this is our standard. And okay, well, what practice planning, right? That was one of your questions, that I wrote down. So let's get real practical. Okay. How do you practice plan? I would suggest it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. Every practice plan is as simple as 1, 2, 3. 1, what standard are you going to fight for today in practice? Right. And we just talked about how you can figure out your standards, which is, what do you hate and what do you have to eliminate? Build a standard that eliminates or requires the opposite of that thing. What standard are you going to require in practice? If you're not strengthening and upholding a standard in your practice, then everything else is wasted. Everything else is wasted because it's not improving. It's staying the same. Standards enhance whatever you're doing. Right. So let's say that you hate it when players don't talk on defense. You hate it. Okay. Well, then your standard might be something like, we communicate early, loud, and often. Early, loud, and often. That's a standard. That's what we do here at this program. Okay, so you have that written down. You must say that at the beginning, during, and at the end of your practice. If you aren't telling them our standard is this and we're holding it up today, if you don't hold the line through everything that you're doing, even as you're working on offense or defense or shooting or what, if you don't hold the line of early, loud, and often, and if you don't measure it at the end and debrief it, whether it be self-evaluation, you evaluate, or whatever, the standard won't be strengthened. The trunk won't grow. Right. So that's simple as 1, 2, 3. So plan your practice there first. Okay. Second, what are the 2 principles that you want your team to improve on? Principles. So for our race and space offense, we have 10 principles. For our lock left defense, we have 10 principles. For our SAVI shooting system, we have 5 principles. These are principles like up and at, okay? Or these are principles like race the arcs, or these are principles as like shrink the floor, right? Select only 2 principles that you want to see your team improve on in practice that day. Right. And a lot of times coaches will select from an offensive and a defensive principle, but they might select a shooting principle or a rebounding principle, or, how we guard inbounds, what, I don't know. Okay. 2 principles. And then make sure that everything that you're doing can get fit into those principles. So if you're selecting race the arcs as one of your offensive principles you can get better at in the day, you might do a drill on bolting, on let's get our first 3 steps, but it's in line with the principle. Remember, our principles, we have to race the arcs more. You might select something as far as okay, we're going to try to break out with our first couple dribbles and be our own outlet more today because it's going to help us race the arcs. Okay, we're going to play a game where you have to get a shot off in the first 7 seconds because it's going to help us run faster, right? So it's everything you're doing is actually in line in line with a first principle too. And I have coaches start with no more than 2. 3 skills, 3 player skills that you want to identify. So, so I actually have coaches build this out as part of their season planning. Is like, okay, if you were to pick 3 skills that every player on your team would improve on this season, what would they be? Limit it to 3. Now, coaches are sweating over that one, right?
That's
They're
tough.
sweating. That's tough, right? And so they end up with a list longer than 3.
I say that's tough.
Okay,
well, no, but if so, back to, I mean, again, I've a lot of times that when I'm having talks with other coaches, things that previous episodes and coaches have said, man, they just run right, they just jot in my head. And one thing that's always come up with others is your simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So that comes up a ton. And so I think if your system or style of play is relatively simple, then you can choose those skills.
Yeah.
If you are running a ton of plays, you have 5 continuities that you bump in and out of, 18 defenses, obviously, unless you can see the skills that translate from thing to thing, but like if they're so dramatically different that it almost requires a completely different way of thinking about the game or approach to the game, I could see that being really, really hard.
Really hard. Really hard. So like for example, like the 3 skills that I have selected for this season for our local academy and club teams is shoot, move, and read. That's all we're focusing on. Shoot, move, and read. Okay. Can we shoot the ball better? Can we move better? And movement is offense, defense, like the best players are the best movers, period. Right. And so like, I don't care about ball handling. I care about, can you move with the ball in your hands? Right? So we're going to work on movement skills and put the ball in their hands. Right. So shoot and then read. Okay. Can you make reads in your player role? Right. And so going back to your shooting question about like levels of shooter, do I still use that? I would say yes. And I've zoomed it out to 5 levels of player, which one part of that level informs what they should be doing from a shooting perspective as well. So five player levels, which would then inform what they should focus their development on. Which would go back honestly to the same way I would develop a player. I would develop an assistant coach in the same way. as well. And I'll go into it right now. So I would urge every coach to hand a note card to every player on their team and every assistant coach on their staff within the first 2 weeks of your season, what I would call your preseason. And I would urge you to hand them this note card as their player or coach development plan that you have for them. And on this note card, it's as simple as having three things: a strength, a stretch, and a roar. Roar like a lion's roar. You'll dig that.
Oh yeah.
A stretch and a roar. And let me define each of these real quick. Strength. Play to your strengths. This is what I see as the greatest value you bring to this team in this program. And I want you to operate in your strength 90% of the time.
Are these more leadership based or skill based for the player?
Yes. Whatever you
Nice.
think is great.
Okay. Well, okay. So to my point, like we have one, he's going to be a junior, could be our most dynamic offensive player. Like, I think that's the thing. They all have to lead. They all have to lead themselves well,
Yes.
lead their teammates well. So that standards can't slide. So, but his strength and what our team needs from him is every team kind of has a guy, and great teams have more than a guy, meaning things are broken down, or this is all, he's consistent, rarely has super low lows, some super highs. We celebrate that, but go ahead.
So I would say in your situation, what I would say is that's his strength. That's the greatest unique value he brings to the team. And like, this cannot waver. You cannot be distracted from this. There's some other things that might drop, but not that. That's your number one priority. And he needs to know it. Your whole coaching staff needs to know it. And every player on the team needs to know it as well. Like, this is what we want him to do.
Yeah.
So, get rid of any, frustration that he's taking too many shots, or like, this is unfair. We're not being held to the same. No. This is his strength. Okay. We've decided it, right? Stretch would be, what's one thing that we want them to grow in this year, that we actually want them to improve? Because otherwise they're going to try to improve a whole bunch of stuff. And like, this is so important too. If you have players that are working with personal trainers, they need to take this note card to that trainer.
Yeah. More connection between the two, bridge the gap.
Absolutely. And the reason I just did our end of season note cards for our players is because I have a bunch of players going to their high school coach right now. Right. And I said,
so they've been racing the whole summer, and now this coach can say, "Oh, walk it up, listen to me, don't move now."
Exactly.
But they got to figure out how to navigate that. I tell our players, hopefully, because I will watch them play and stuff, and hopefully it's almost like a breath of fresh air coming back to us, where less control, more freedom. Anyway, keep going.
It should be. I mean, but what's really cool is we've had a couple of high school coaches reach out to me and ask if they can come watch a practice and learn. They're like, "Oh man, I love the way that this."
Well, what a no-brainer! If you're the coach, if it's your system, yeah, I'm going too. But
you would be surprised. You would be surprised.
Well, pride is, I think, fear. Go back to fear and pride is, if I go to this and I watch something and I like it, or it's outside my comfort zone, it's maybe sometimes easier to stay in ignorance, which is, I don't really know what they're doing, so I'm just going to stick with what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I see that.
Yeah, for sure. So they would know their stretch, and like for assistant coaches as well. Like, they need to know. I'm consulting for an assistant coach, and I don't work with the head coach, because the assistant coach is like, I'm getting so frustrated. I believe in coaching. Like, I believe in my career. I need consulting. And so we work on how he, as an assistant coach, can be his best, where his head coach does not believe in the things that he does as an assistant. Right. And so like,
man, you've got to be like Jedi mind tricking that head coach every day with great suggestions. What do you think about this? Celebrating him, trying to lead him in that
every day, right? Yeah. And what this assistant coach, and this is a challenge for all the head coaches out there. What this assistant coach is begging for from his head coach is role clarity. Like, just tell me what you want me to do. right? Because the head coach just expects him to show up and be a part of everything. And this assistant coach doesn't know, what's my role in this? Do you want me to be vocal or want me to be not vocal? What exactly do you want me to be saying? Like, what are we teaching? You haven't, like, how do you want me to grow? And never gets feedback. Coaches crave feedback. Clarity is kindness. Brene Brown, clarity is kindness as a head coach. And so that's what
Yeah.
this note card is, like, show up
Man.
this way, right? Stretch into, I had an assistant coach that was giving constant concurrent feedback from the bench in games, right? Pass the ball in the corner, go box out, right? Like constant, right? Constant. And in the middle of the game, I said, you're not allowed to speak to any player on the floor the rest of the game. You need to identify what's one piece of feedback you can give a player when they come off.
Yeah.
And that's all you're doing. Right. And so then when I gave him his card, that was his stretch. Eliminate concurrent feedback and think more. Stretch into that. And so clarity is kindness. And that's how you lead assistant coaches. Right. And then the third piece that I put into players and coaches is what I call the roar. And I'm going to give a shout out to my man, our friend, Edward LeBlanc, who shared this idea with me. And Edward is reading a book that illustrated how lions hunt. And you might like this for your team. Okay.
Yeah.
So how a pride of lions will hunt is they'll take like the oldest, biggest, baddest, biggest mane, scarred up, gnarliest, lion in the pride. And they'll sit them at one edge of, the field or the clearing where all of the prey, the antelope are. And the lion will just sit there. Now, this is an old lion. It doesn't move very well anymore, but it looks ferocious and mean and has a big roar. And all the other like young, fast lions will go to the other side of the clearing and hide, right? And then all of a sudden, when they're in place, the big old lion will let loose this vicious, massive roar, which will scare the gazelle, and they'll run away from the roar right into the waiting lions that will hunt them down and kill them because they're fast. Now, what the gazelle don't know is the only chance they actually had at survival was to run towards the roar and not away from it, because that's where the gaps are and that's where the lion can't move very well, right? Run towards the roar. It's what you even alluded to. It's an illustration of what you alluded to is like your greatest fear and the most difficult thing is the obstacle that is the way to the next level. And so for me, like the roar is I attempt to identify the thing that's holding players back the most. And I think that's honestly the art of leadership.
Yeah.
And I say, hey, this is your roar this season. You got to run towards it and not away. You've been running away from it. And it's what's holding you back. And again, the answer is yes. Is this a skill thing? Like you just haven't put in the work to tear apart your body and get in the best shape of your life. You haven't done it, run towards the roar. Or is it a leadership thing? You're afraid of what people think of you and you don't hold your teammates accountable. Run towards the roar. Hold your teammates accountable this season, right? Or, assistant coach. You don't show up early and put in the extra time to actually get better at your craft. You just like being a part of it, right? Run towards the roar. Like what's that thing? And so strength, stretch, and roar note card. That's how I lead an assistant coach. That's how I lead, individual players. And I do it at the beginning and end of every season.
I want to celebrate you for making me feel like just a horrible head coach. But no, it's really good. I'm guilty of my guys are part-time.
Yeah.
And I think honestly though, this is what Shawnee did to me too. Like it felt like it was a one-on-one therapy session for the majority of the time. Like I just shared a bunch of crap. She just gave me her responses. And at the end of it, I was like, what did I just do? But no, with this, it's like, but you do such a great job. And again, this is a gift that you have. You've always had it. But then it's also like you've worked really hard to create these systems and this ability to make me feel like there's more that I can do. Because with my part-time guys, I think I've been hiding behind the idea of they're just coming from work. The stipend's real small. I don't want to put a lot on their plate. So I'm going to carry a lot of this. Guys, just thank you for being here. Do what you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's pretty weak. There's more that I could do for my players. I have 10-minute meetings and I do get to know them, but how clear am I with one interesting question I thought about asking my guys is, do they know what they need to do to get playing time? Because I think for majority of them, they would answer that question based on what the best players do. Well, our best player, he can just flat out shoot it, handle it, and he attacks. That's what I need to do to get playing time. Well, no, that's a lack of clarity on my part, because not everybody is going to have the same skill set or be able to do the same things. So to tell if there's not that idea, or they don't understand what their role is, what their stretch is, what their roar could be, then they're just basing it on what they think the best player has to do. And golly, I mean, you're going to just have a lot of frustration there. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
So well articulated, and
I don't think it was, but thanks.
Oh, it was, man. And let me even clarify, because I'm glad you made that point about get playing time. That's how I would frame the strength as well. The better you do this, the more playing time you get. The worse you do this, the less you get. And that's where it's honestly the main reason why I'm doing club teams here is, one, to have an impact, and my daughters are into basketball.
Nice.
But two, it's just a laboratory. Like, I can actually say, like, I coach this team and I have tried this, as opposed to being like, here's a theory, try it out.
No doubt. And well done with that too, because I don't know if we're going to have enough time to get to it, because I actually do have a class to go to at 11:55. But I did, because you told me years ago that you're a horrible coach and that the first thing you do is fire yourself. Well, have you fired yourself yet? But obviously not. But what have you learned from the stuff that you've been teaching? Because not that coaches wouldn't have believed you before, but I could see maybe there could be doubt in them saying, like, yeah, great idea, guy who doesn't actually have parents talking, all this stuff. But now that you have, I'm sure it's validated a ton of things that you do teach. But what have you learned from being on that side of it?
I have learned that I am not yet simple enough. Yeah, not yet simple enough. I mean, I have learned that if players can't do it autonomously in a game, then I haven't taught it well enough yet. And there's no reason to move on to anything else. Like, we frustrated teams so much with lock left and generated so many turnovers, right? And we still, like, can't get past layer 3. Right? In a whole, like,
do you feel like they need to get past layer 3?
I think so. The number one program in the state of Arizona, we have lost to in the championship of these tournaments consistently all season long. So I would say, like, our team's probably like number 2 in the state of Arizona club teams. And in order to beat that team, we got to get past layer 3.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. And so, now we got to, be more dedicated to showing up to practice and having consistency. It's club, it's AAU basketball, right? And so 1 to 2 practices a week with maybe your whole team.
Have you found that challenging to really be able to get deep enough with these concepts? The fact that in select ball, you practice less, you play more, and typically it's hard to get everybody there because life has challenges.
Absolutely. And I think it's made me a better coach.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's made me a better coach because you have more constraint. Just like constraint makes players better, constraint makes coaches better. And, like, another great tool for coaches that want to identify blind spots is constrain yourself. Constrain yourself, put some arbitrary constraint on yourself as a coach, and then see how you react. Like, what would be an arbitrary constraint? Okay, I'll give it to you. This is another clear thing you could do for your assistant coaches and yourself. All coaching falls into, in my opinion, all coaching in practice should fall into three categories: 7, 11, 21, casino numbers. Okay. 7, 11, 21. All right. 7-second sound bites that are one-on-one outside of the flow of a drill or game. So as a player rotates off, rotates out of the drill, is a sub on the sideline, it's a one-on-one 7-second conversation where it's a piece of encouragement or a teaching focused reminder. And the reason it's 7 seconds or less is because it causes you to think before you speak. Right? You don't just start, you don't process verbally to the player. You think, process, how
dangerous to do that.
Yeah, right. 7-second. Right. And so I would, with my assistant coaches, every assistant coach, when they first get involved, I say, you're on a 7-second restriction. The only thing you're doing this entire practice is giving 7-second sound bites outside of the flow. That's it. Nothing else until I can overhear and listen and be like, okay, I believe, I trust, good. Then you've graduated to 11 seconds. Okay. Now, 11 seconds are group-wide reminders. That's the main difference. It's not necessarily the time, but it's like 7-second is one-on-one. 11 is when you would address a group or a team. And the other restriction for 11-second is no new teaching. You can only remind and refocus the group to something that we've already established and taught as a principle that the head coach has already taught, or that has been established previously. That's it. And it should be no longer than 11 seconds, not approximate, right? So that's an 11. So I might say, assistant coach has been with me for 5 years that I really trust. You can go 7s and 11s, right? Brand new, young assistant that you're on 7-second restriction. That's your job. 21s are longer than 21 seconds, and it's a new concept. And 21s usually are reserved only for the head coach, right? This is where I'm going to bring you in, and we're going to talk about this new action or this new, way that we're going to run the floor, or, how we're going to defend inbounds, or this. That's a 21, right? And then I would have a head coach tally mark either on their own little phone or notebook, or have an assistant or an injured player do how many 7s, 11s, and 21s they use in a given practice. And so like if you were to, try to evaluate your teaching by those three categories, what would you say you do the most if it was by tally mark? You do the most 7 seconds, 11 seconds, or 21s?
Second period, because it's very much like a PGC session of teach, go, and getting individual touches. I would say mostly 7s.
Yeah.
I definitely hit 111 today with a player, and then 2 21s because there were 2 expansions on some of the things we've already done. Well, Brunson being a new concept that we put in today, that was definitely a 21 in front of everybody. But I don't know. I think mostly 7s.
Yeah. And that's one thing I love about you as a coach, because, I tell coaches that you actually want it to look like this. Not maybe showing up backwards for you on your screen.
No, it's good.
Okay, cool. 7s, 11s, 21s. The majority should be 7s. Yes. And most coaches,
yeah,
like that, right?
Yeah.
And that would be, I think, another way to lead your assistants and a way to expose your own blind spots. It's like, oh my gosh, if you are spending most of your time doing 21-second new teachings, you're teaching way too much. Teaching way too much. And that's another way to kind of like just put in some guardrails to help simplify your message as a coach.
I've added to my speed round.
Let's go.
And a couple of new ones that I want to hit. I feel like we got to do a part 3, because what I love getting to talk with you, I know we hit some of the questions, but I didn't ask really any. It just kind of flowed, right? Not that you spoke the whole time.
That makes me a bad guest.
No, that's not what I meant. But it just flowed really well, and you lead you just lead it good. So I want to hit this, and then I want to have a little bit of time to talk about more of this consulting. I have a couple of questions on it, and that maybe some other coaches will have. So we've hit. I'm going to go past some of them. They can watch episode 2. Be really interesting again to go back and dive deeper through episode 2 to now to see some of those changes or differences. But greatest shooter of all time.
Steph Curry.
You did pause.
I did pause.
You were going to say yourself.
No, definitely not going to say myself. So I think there's 3 types of shooter, and so I would probably try to select one from each type of shooter. Like I call Steph a separation shooter, right, where he generates it off of space and speed. Whereas like then there's vertical shooters like Michael Jordan, Jimmy Butler, right? They elevate over. They can get shots off that Steph can't get off.
That's
right. And there's a ton of value to that. And so like if we did that, then I think there's the reason why Michael Jordan was like his game winners were so many is like he could get his shot off. Steph sometimes can't get it off. Right.
Yeah.
And then I think there's like a vertical shooter, like a Dirk Nowitzki, Nikola Jokic, right, where they just deliver the ball. Larry Bird, they deliver the ball from a point, such a high and deep point. It's unblockable. And there's so much value to that as well. And so like I would define great shooters not as like you just make shots, but like what value do you bring? So anyway.
Only you could take that question, break it into threes. And simplicity, and then you complicate that so much.
I'm trying to get to the other side of complexity.
Best basketball movie of all time.
Hoosiers.
We might have asked that before. Up 3 on defense, 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Foul once it goes under 5.
Okay. Got it.
That's just where I've landed rule of thumb, just so I can be clear with it. Once it gets under 5, we're fouling.
Name a book that you'd give to somebody besides the Bible.
The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren.
Wow. Haven't heard that one in a while.
Yeah. I recently have started rereading it. I'm like, I need to do this every year.
I was going to say, I think I've started it a bunch of times, never got all the way through. Still looking for my purpose, I guess. But name a bucket list item you still need to do.
Take my wife to her birthplace in Paris, France.
That's a good one.
Yeah. We have to stop pumping out these kids.
When you're 65, you'll be able to do that. Last one. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
I don't believe in the GOAT. But I am going to say, gosh, I'm going to say Kobe.
Wow.
Yeah. I would say it's shifted. I know I got Michael Jordan behind me right there.
Yeah.
I am going to say Kobe.
Give me your why in 21 seconds.
I think it's both about on-court performance, but also impact to the culture in the game. And for me, I feel like his impact on the culture in the game was what I valued more. Like, Michael just brought winning, just win at all costs, right? And obviously, the brand, the Jordan brand.
Yeah.
But the Jordan brand, if you think about it, the Jordan brand is empty. Like there's no character quality associated with the Jordan brand. It's just winning, right? It's winning, coolness, image, right?
Coolness is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Right. Coolness, right? Whereas Kobe, Mamba mentality, there's a character quality to that. And so I think bringing like LeBron's brand, there's not a character quality to LeBron's brand or
nice
impact.
Guy. That's his quality.
Right? Nice guy. Yeah. Kobe, I think brought a character quality that is positively impacted sport and basketball. The Mamba mentality of work, focus, effort, right? All of that stuff. So that's why I would go Kobe.
I always love our talks and have this time together. I think we need a part 3.
Come on,
if you don't mind, and we'll figure it out. But man, just so thankful to be able to call you a friend. And I don't mean this in like a weird way, but just proud of you for everything that you're doing with basketball, but with that school impacting players, impacting coaches on a higher level, because the basketball part is shallow. Like it will stop, but man, you're leaving a lasting impact. So I really appreciate you for that.
Thank you, Matt. I received that. It fills me up. I'm really thankful for our friendship, and I'm proud of you as well for launching and sticking with this podcast. If you think about how many people have like, I'm starting a podcast, right? But they aren't doing it 2 years later,
No, it's
And
easy to
so,
quit it after a little while, but yeah, not missing a week in over 2 years. But it's been a ton of fun. I'm learning a lot. Real quick about your coaching community and consulting.
mhm. So yeah,
What does that look like?
yeah, so Savvy Coaching is a membership, and like our base level membership gets you access to all of our online content and our text community where I interact with you and you interact with the hundreds of other Savvy coaches that are out there. That's our base level, right? It's $47 a month or 470 a year, right? And that gets you in. And then from there, if you want consulting with me and my team, we talk about that. It's enterprise pricing, and we can
Okay.
build a package for you. It ranges from $1,000 to $5,000 annually, and we consult for anywhere from 20 to 30 programs at a given time. And so that's what we do, and that's what really fires me up. And the content that comes out of the individual consulting, that's what goes into the base level community. It's just not tailored to you. So
Yeah.
that's what Savvy is. That's what we do for coaches.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, like the lock left race and space, which I'm really aligned with, and then the savvy shooting. Can I join the consulting part, but still do what we do? Use our verbiage, but you'll help kind of build more clarity and systems. Obviously, probably would love to adopt more of the language that you use, but like we do a pressure 3-2, and it's really given us identity. Mm-hmm. But can your system consulting with you even help me to be greater in that?
Yeah, and that's really why I shifted to the consulting piece with the majority of my focus and time. Is anybody can go and just join our membership and get the systems. If we're working one-on-one, I'm trying to help you achieve your goals. And so like week 1 is we go through your coaching tree. What's your why? What are your standards? What are your systems? What outcomes do you want? Then I can actually help you. Right. Yeah. So that's week 1. So that's everything we do on the consulting. And I feel like we haven't really talked about, our systems, Savvy systems at all on this call. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's great. Like, because this is what we do weekly with, the coaches that we've worked with. And it's a broad array from college coaches, Division I to Division III, probably the majority are high school programs, as well as like club teams. So hit us up at savvycoach.com. Hit me on Twitter, DM me at Tyler Coston, email me Tyler at SAVI coach.com. And we'll see if there's a fit.
Really appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you. And man, blessings to your family and congrats on soon to be empty nesters. And I'm excited to see how you guys run towards the roar.
And congrats on you with another one on the way. That's incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. All right. God bless.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.